Hello everyone. Today's video will be a review of Space Marine 2 9 to 10 months after its launch. Since it's been almost a year since Space Marine 2 has been out, since it released, and since then it has had quite a bit of updates with regards to content for PvE, balance updates to weapons in PvE, and also little tiny bits of things in PvP, but mostly this is going to be a video just as a review and my thoughts on Space Marine 2 since its launch, and whether or not I would recommend it personally to someone, and just what are my thoughts on the different aspects of the game. Now, starting with the campaign. The campaign is nothing too special, nothing too grand with regards to narrative storytelling and writing. That doesn't say it's terrible. It's definitely not the greatest thing and most amazing thing in the world, but it's not bad. Right? It's a story in a game that you're probably playing for the sake of the combat and the visceral feel of going through it. The main threats that you run into in the beginning are going to be the Tyranids, and fighting the Tyranids in the campaign, as well as the operations and siege mode now, feel great. Feels very satisfying, feels good. Some enemies get annoying if you're playing on harder difficulties and you run into multiple groups of warriors, or groups that have like 5 warriors or some such like that. You can get stun locked pretty easily. Overall feels kind of rough, kind of bad. And zoanthropes can generally be pretty annoying with their energy ball attack as well as their beam. There are some areas in the campaign, some missions with the Tyranids that just don't feel very good, or feel kind of gimmicky and drag on. The mission that comes to mind is, I believe, the third mission on Kataku with the Ripper Swarms, and how you have to use a Pyroblaster to torch your way through them to get through safely. On higher difficulties, that gets kind of rough to do, like to juggle, especially if you're also playing in co-op, because you have to worry about your fellows players that you're playing with not dying. So there's that can be a little rough. But overall, with fighting the Tyranids in the campaign and the Tyranid missions, those feel pretty good. Generally speaking, the objective, the narrative is pretty simple. It's get orders from Captain Acheran, go to XYZ place, deal with Tyranids there, stop them from trying to consume one place, or less of stop, but more of like slow them down and then move on to the next objective. One could say that that's pretty boring, and arguably it is, but simple, straightforward. Get a mission, go do mission. Lieutenant Titus and Gadriel and Chiron go and accomplish the objective. Cool. Things start kind of expanding from there. Once you get into Avarax, then you start dealing with the artifact from Graia, which was an item, the MacGuffin from the first Space Marine game. I'm not too knowledgeable about the first Space Marine game. I have not played it firsthand. I just know what people have talked about and said about it. So there's that. But that starts opening up a grander connection to the first game. Titus being very intimately aware and knowing of hey, what this does, and how the Mechanicus are being fools for meddling with it. That is what it is. And then it opens up into further connections when you get to the second mission on Avarax, where the Thousand Suns are involved now. Okay, we have Chaos Space Marines, of the Thousand Suns. So Rubric Marines. And general thoughts of the Thousand Suns. I'll expand more about this in the operations section, along with the Tyranids. Thousand Suns are annoying. I'd say compared to fighting the Tyranids, just overall annoying for the sake of the sandbox gameplay element for the campaign section. Narratively, the story kind of starts going in the direction of narratively, the game starts going into the direction of, okay, the Thousand Suns seem to be scheming and plotting. For one reason or another, they have interests of something to do on Avarax and on Kataku, because on Kotaku on the last mission before heading off to Avarax were the first signs of there being any chaos cults or Thousand Suns oriented business happening. So with that, you go to do the third mission. It's a mix of Tyranid or third mission on Avarax, so the last mission on Avarax. That's a mix of Tyranid and Thousand Suns gameplay. You still don't know what the true or like what the ultimate like goals or kind of agenda is of the Thousand Suns, and you really don't figure it out until like the end of the mission, and that's when you come to find out that the planet Demirium, which is a burial world for the Imperium, that's where the main research project of the Mechanicus with the artifact from Graia is taking place. The Thousand Suns are leading an attack en masse there, and that's where the whole shebang happens. Come to find out, Thousand Suns have basically been, planning this from the beginning and all that. So overall story, it's not bad, not great. It's a little lame that the Thousand Suns are the twist villain in a way. From what I know of the first game, it's not too dissimilar to how the first game went, where, Graia is being attacked by an orc wog or some such. Captain Titus at the time, Leandros, and Sidonus, I believe it was the name of the third Space Marine, are there helping stop the orc wog. And then come to find out, the Inquisitor, I believe, that you were trying to assist was actually secretly been dead the entire time. One was possessed by a demon from the warp, and that, the Chaos Sorcerer Nimroth is secretly behind all this and is trying to ascend a Demon Prince. So, Demon Princehood. So it's not too dissimilar to that, but it's kind of lame. Off to my brief thoughts on PvP. Now, PvP, and I do apologize for this, I wasn't able to get any good recording of PvP footage because at the time of recording, no PvP matches I seem to be able to connect to. Either no one's playing PvP right now, regardless of game mode. Not too surprising, not much has happened in the way of PvP content since the game is launched. Overall, my thoughts on the PvP, it's basic. It's simple. It's nothing extravagant. You have Team Deathmatch, which is Annihilation. You have Capture and Control, which is a game mode where there's one objective to capture. It moves around the map periodically, I think every minute or some interval of time like that. And then the last game mode is basically your standard 3-point objective control game. Whoever holds the most objectives gains the most points, and then whoever hits the points cap wins. Overall, not basic. I have my own little personal nitpicks and gripes with class balance and sort of design. One example being, I think assaults with their dive bomb. It gets annoying when you get spam killed, like spam dive bombed. I would say regardless of what class you are. It's also, I would say, annoying / an oversight that you can't dodge the ground slam. So like if an assault does it to you, you can't dodge it. So there's that. With Vanguard, at least Vanguard shortly after launch was really annoying because of the stun from being grappled with their grapnel launcher. That has since been nerfed. You don't get stung for as long, so there's more of a window to fight back if you get grappled by a Vanguard. Another gripe I have with PvP, and this is more just like the class balance, is bulwarks. Bulwarks that turtle up and just don't do anything. Kind of frustrating. Is what it is. There's not really much you can do about it. Yeah, they get slowed when you shoot them, while they're blocking for the entire time. But honestly, if they're already going to be slowly advancing towards you while blocking, slowing them down by 25 to 50% isn't doing that much. They're still going to be accomplishing their goal of, hey, waste bullets shooting me, and while I still advance towards you to shiv you, So there's that. Overall, general feeling of the PvP, it's good. Feels good. Gunplay feels overall fairly good. Some guns do feel like they have an edge over others. Not too many. It depends. I'd say in terms of weapon balance in PvP, especially since the Neo Volkite pistol, Inferno pistol, and actually I believe those are the only two weapons that have been added to the game. Overall, I feel good. I haven't had hands-on experience with the Neo Volkite or the Inferno pistol in PvP. I've not played enough PvP to be able to use them, but overall, weapon balance wise, things feel good. Overall, good. Map design's simple. It's like, yeah, I guess you could say like three basic, simple 3-lane objective or 3-lane design maps. There was one new map that got added to the game that's set in the bowels of Demirium in the Tomb World section of it. Overall, feels pretty good. Not terribly designed. But just the PvP isn't super active because there hasn't been much to happen to the PvP in the game. And that's been to the chagrin of the PvP part of the Space Marine 2 community. So I understandably feel, I understand the frustration. I feel it. But Space Marine 2, at the end of the day, wasn't made for being a PvP game. It was made to be a PvE action slasher shooter kind of game. Now, on to my thoughts on operations, or the bulk of what makes up Space Marine 2. Operations. We're gonna start now. We're gonna split. I'm gonna talk a little bit about I'm gonna talk a little bit about siege mode just because it's brand new. I'm gonna talk mostly about operations because it's the bulk of the stuff, and this is also gonna tie into a little bit of the campaign gripe I have with the story. Now, first off, to open up with operations. Operations are not too dissimilar to strikes from Destiny and Destiny 2, where they're missions that you as your Space Marines, your Space Marine and two other people and their Space Marines, separate classes, are going on a mission, and that mission, the objective of it, the narrative of that mission pertains directly to an event that is happening in the campaign at that moment in time. So, an example being when you do the Inferno mission, or the Inferno operation, that is taking place during the events of the second campaign mission on Kadaku. And that operation is is incredibly important to how the narrative plays out in the campaign. Vox Libertalis, the third operation the second one of two operations, or not two, but one of the operations on Avrax pertains to finding the source of the Vox communications disturbances and interruptions and destroy it, or just get rid of it. Come to find out that it's a Thousand Suns related issue. They're using a demon host. Your squad takes it out or sends it back to the warp. Okay, cool, great. Vox communications are now good. There can now be now Titus and company can send transmissions at an astropathic transmission to Marneus Calgar. Not all the operations follow this structure, but a good half of them now, half or a little under half or a little over half, do pertain directly to the campaign. Now, I have a gripe of this mostly because it would be kind of cool if the campaign was the campaign and its story was, I would say, more fleshed out. Not to say that I wish the missions were longer, but just there were more to do in the campaign, right? Probably have some more missions, whatever else have you. Beyond that gripe, though, in terms of the overall feel of the operations, I would say, by and large, Tyranid operations feel good. They do get a little, to a degree, repetitive, but it definitely feels like the Tyranid operations are the more, I would say, well thought out, or more thought out operations. Like, they're the ones that seem to have had a bit more thought and care put into it. Now that sounds odd. That kind of sounds mean, but I do feel that way, right? The Tyranid operations on the whole feel better than the Thousand Suns operations. Now on to the topic of Thousand Suns operations. Overall, they are not too bad, but to a degree, it is kind of annoying. Like, it's a lot of, I guess you could say, busy work. And that's the same thing with the Tyranid missions, but I think it comes down to how the enemies interact in the sandbox with you as the player, right? So at the Tyranids, so we're now pivoting into my talk of enemy sandbox, or the enemies sandbox, and just how things feel. And this is all subjective. This is all my personal opinion. You don't have to agree. You can say I have the most dog water hot crap take imaginable, and I respect it and I completely understand. But from my perspective, the way I view it is Tyranids as a whole, as one of the two factions that you fight, overall feel better in how this game plays, and that being a more action slasher and plus shooter game. Now, that also plays into the fact that the Tyranids as an enemy do lend themselves into just rushing you down. You're going to be getting into melee and getting into the thick of it in basically every combat encounter you ever have with the Tyranids. There are still some shooters. There are Tyranid warriors that have barb launchers and spine launchers. There's biovores now. There's zoanthropes. You have the termagants with their little guns. You have a whole plethora. It's not just only melee. There is still some good bit of shooting. That shooting can be pretty annoying, but overall it feels good. There's more of like a receptiveness, and a responsiveness when you're in combat with the Tyranids. On top of the fact being that executions for Tyranid enemies, regardless of what we're talking about, are satisfying. I'd say regardless of what weapon you're using, what melee weapon you have equipped, they are incredibly satisfying. Talking about the new enemy that got added to the Tyranids, being the Biovore, it is kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying. It's kind of tanky. It being able to shoot spore mines does make it annoying. I remember that when the Biovores first got brought into the game, there was a funny little bug or unintended problem happening, where there was so much spore mines being spawned in missions that were not spawned by Biovores. So that was problematic. Fun times, good stuff. Moving on to my talk about the Thousand Suns in PvE, in operations. And this also bleeds over into the campaign. Thousand Suns overall, annoying. That's, cultists, the Zongors, and the Rubric High, or Rubric Marines, plus Scarab Occult Terminators. Now, if I had to pinpoint what makes the Thousand Suns more of a pain to deal with the fighting of them, it would be that their army, their faction in the game, is more of a shooting army. Now, that is representative in tabletop. I will say that. Compared to 40k on tabletop, that is very much accurate for the Thousand Suns. They are a shooting army. They are a faction that cast spells and shoot guns and do magic and stuff. They're not really going to be throwing hands and closing a distance. But it is to a level where it feels a little too much, right? Because you have Chaos Cultists that, sure, they die in one hit to anything. You can literally run into them and they just explode into puffs of gore and viscera. But they shoot you. And their shooting is kind of whatever, but then you have the cultist snipers that actually can hurt. Like, they actually will get rid of your armor and do a good chunk of damage to your actual health. So, like, that doesn't feel too good. You then have Zongors, which are your premier melee fodder for Thousand Suns. Now, I wouldn't have an issue with the Zongors if their shields didn't make them tankier than they ought to be. Sure, just shoot them in the head or melee them. Perfectly fair, perfectly valid. Overall, they're not too much harder to kill than Hormagaunts and Termagaunts, but their shields do make them a little bit tankier than they ought to be for being a fodder type enemy. Rubric Marines and their bolt guns, not annoying, though their attack that you need to dodge through, if for whatever reason you get hit by one of those high powered bolt shots, the stagger can be kind of annoying, especially if you're getting shot by multiple of them at the same time or around the same time. You can get stun locked and just all of a sudden, where'd all my health go? Warp Flame Rubric Marines with their flamers, not too bad. I know in groups or when you're dealing with multiples at the same time, their fire can definitely be pretty devastating. You can get stun locked pretty easily by them. They also like to do undodgeable or unblockable attacks often. Is what it is. Scarab Occult Terminators. The ones with the Soul Reaper chain cannons and missiles. They hurt. They hurt. Not too hard to kill. The overall I don't have any gripes with them personally. The ones with power swords and the storm bolters, those are scary. Their melee combos can stagger you and really tear you a new one. And then Hellbrutes feel good. Makes me kind of sad that Hellbrutes in tabletop are, well, kind of middling to a degree. So off to my closing thoughts on Space Marine 2. What do I think of it as a whole? What do I think of it since it's released? Now that there's been, balance updates for the operations, the siege mode, and what little has been done to PvP, and what is going to be done to it in the future. Overall, my thoughts on Space Marine 2 is it's a good game. I would say if you could buy the game when it's on sale, definitely. It's got a serviceable story, good gameplay, feels overall pretty satisfying. I personally play on controller. I know from what I've heard from other people that the keybinds for mouse and keyboard are kind of bad or just out of the way where your hand and fingers want to be located. Overall, feels pretty good. Would recommend. PvP is kind of dead, but that's just because no one's really playing it because there's not really anything new to it. It's been basically how it was at launch is basically how it's been all the way up until now. Operations, satisfying, fun. Thousand Suns operations are a bit more tedious and annoying, but overall not bad. That's probably where you're going to spend the bulk of your time playing Space Marine 2. Siege mode is fun. I've played it a couple times now already. I enjoy it a lot. It gets hard once you get towards wave 15 and onward. It gets pretty difficult. I've only played it on normal difficulty, and it gets kind of rough when you get further along into it. But overall, pretty good. People have complained about the monetization with the cosmetic packs and how $5 for extra colors that you can unlock and earn and some additional armor pieces and decals is too expensive, or you're not getting enough for how much you're paying for. I don't think it's an issue. I think that's just people being so used to how microtransactions in other live service games have been, where you can spend like $20 for a really nice looking skin for one character, but then on the same hand they'll complain about spending $5 and with that you get the ability, you can unlock new decals, new color, more colors, so that way you can customize your Space Marine to be your own custom chapter, or if you want to represent the Lamenters, there you go. I know with regards to the customization and the microtransaction side of stuff, the champion packs are kind of whatever. I know the biggest complaint, and I do also agree with this, is that the choice of what classes get what champion cosmetics don't agree with all of them. I know the most recent one for White Scars getting, the Assault getting the White Scar champion cosmetic. Huge missed opportunity to give the Blood Angels that, but is what it is. It's unfortunate. Um, I know on the side of customization, I think the level of customization you have, even if you don't buy any of the champion packs, I think is absolutely great. Right? You have basically everything that you would really need to customize your Space Marine however you would see fit. And then obviously, yeah, if you want to be a Lamenter, like you really simp for being a Lamenter and like that's your army and whatnot, you gotta buy the Blood Angels champion or the Blood Angels cosmetic pack. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, you know. Same thing with some of the other successor chapters. Unfortunately, for the decals or the colors, you gotta get the cosmetic pack. It's unfortunate, but it's not terribly expensive. $5 average, not too bad. It's a whole lot better than spending 20 for one skin for in any other game. But with that, guys, that will be my overall thoughts and review of Space Marine 2, 9 to 10 months after its launch. Hope you guys enjoyed my little rambling on and some of the background B-roll gameplay footage. If you guys like this kind of content, be sure to let me know in the comments. Feel free to like the video. Feel free to subscribe. You don't have to if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine. Also, feel free to give me your thoughts on Space Marine 2. What are your thoughts on how the game was when it launched and how it is now? Do you enjoy the siege mode? Do you lament the fact that PvP is kind of dead at the moment? That's partly why I couldn't really get any footage for it. What complaints do you may you have with the story? That came out weird, but overall, feel free to let me know what your thoughts on anything and everything pertaining to Space Marine 2 are down in the comment section below. But until the next time, hope you guys have a wonderful day, wherever you may find yourself, either here or on the tabletop. Until next time, you guys take care. Have a good one.